I have a few things that I'd like to discuss, and then I'll be around afterwards if you have some questions and we can chat one-on-one. I'd like to start off by expressing my sincere appreciation for the support that I've received in communities across the riding and many of your communities. And the voters sent a clear message. They're tired of the partisan wrangling and the projects that are being delayed because their elected representatives are spending more time arguing than getting things done. And of course, I'm not talking about the work that any of you do. I'm talking more so on the provincial and federal levels. A lot of people, when describing Parliament, describe it as being a playground and just like elementary school. So I wanted to let you know that I've listened to the message and that I'm working hard for all of my constituents, regardless of your political affiliation. In this room right now, I know that we have representatives of various political stripes, and to me that doesn't matter because I believe that we share a common interest, which is setting the conditions for our communities to thrive. And I hope that all of you are willing to work with me to accomplish that goal. As I've said a number of times in a number of meetings, there is a time and place for partisan politics, and that time is during an election. All other times there should be one focus, and that should be getting results for our communities, and this is what I'm squarely focused on in my work as your member of provincial parliament. Over my first few months, I've had a chance to sit down with many of you, and we've been able to talk about our mutual vision that we have for the communities and for the riding as a whole. And I hope to continue to build a productive partnership with each and every community in the riding. If I haven't had an opportunity to speak with you already, I plan to do so in the next coming weeks. But I want you to keep in mind that this is not a one-way relationship, and I want everyone in the room to know that if you have an issue or a topic of concern, to call me. I'm here to work with you, so keep in mind that my door is always open, and I want us to be partners moving forward. As I'm sure you're aware, it's been a busy couple of months, and I want to bring you up to speed on some of the initiatives I've been working on. I think it goes without saying that a large part of my focus so far has been healthcare. To be honest, I'm surprised at how many challenges that we've had and that we've been facing in communities across the riding. I have serious concerns about the way that our healthcare is being delivered in our region, and I have real fears that if we do not act, we will be facing a major crisis 1 to 2 years down the road. Which is also why I formally invited the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care to tour our riding. I'm pleased to say that I was able to help the community of Ear Falls so that they could avoid a closure of their clinic. But there's more to do. My discussions with healthcare professionals, health boards, and municipalities has led me to believe that it's the system that's broken and that the system is not working for us in Northwestern Ontario. And that's why I'm asking the Minister of Health and Long-Term Care to come up, tour the area, and see the challenges that we have. Because it's not adequate just to look at the map and see the distance of the communities. You have to be here to understand. It's true that the Minister just announced changes to the system, which will give the LHINs more control over family health teams. Unfortunately, this does nothing to address the challenges that many of our health centers are facing in the riding. So I'm going to continue to push for northern consultations that will help the province design a system that works for Northern Ontario. Another big issue that I know municipalities have been taking a big interest in is mining. Many of you believe that mining is our future, and it's certainly going to be a big part of it. The area known as the Ring of Fire is said to be one of the richest deposits in the world for a number of sought-after minerals, and if properly developed, can generate hundreds of billions of dollars of wealth and thousands of jobs for our region. Last week I was in Pickle Lake for an open house. It was hosted by Noront Resources, and 2 days later I was fortunate to go up to Noront's Esker camp in the Ring of Fire. I talked with a number of stakeholders and I met with many First Nations, and the message I'm hearing loud and clear is that it's the provincial government that's holding back development. What I'm hearing is the province has been slow to give companies the necessary approvals. It's dragged its feet on environmental approvals, and it's been slow to process paperwork. The province has also delayed the process by failing to consult with First Nations. But I want to make one thing clear, because the province wants you to believe a different story. First Nations are not opposed to development in the Ring of Fire. They simply want to be made aware of what's going on. They want to know that the processes that are being used respect the environment, and they want to make sure that they get part of the benefit. And I don't think that these are reasonable requests or expectations. And I think you as municipal leaders would view this opportunity the very same way if there was a development to be happening in your communities. But as of right now, the province is not listening. And I think we all have to be aware of one thing, and that is that the Ring of Fire will not be developed until the province's attitude changes, and I'm working on those changes. You can even ask mining companies and they'll tell you that First Nations communities aren't the problem. The province is. Sure, there are some junior mining companies who have gone into First Nation communities with both barrels blazing and who have encountered problems as a result. But every single company that, when they have gone into the community, have consulted with the First Nation, kept them up to date, has been successful. So it's time that the province takes the same attitude. I'm sure it comes as no surprise that the provincial and federal governments are scaling back spending. And I think it's fair to suggest that some of the biggest areas of cuts will be municipal infrastructure funding. Everyone gathered here knows how important it is to have financial support from both the province and the federal government, especially with these types of projects that are very large in scale and very expensive. Many communities across the riding need help maintaining their roads, upgrading their wastewater facilities, and keeping public buildings up to date. We also know that in this economic climate in the region over the past decade, hundreds of millions of dollars of repairs, upgrades, and replacements are needed, with fewer dollars to allocate such imposing maintenance projects. Yet it seems like the only time that there's any significant contribution is in a time of a recession, when the government, both levels of government, provincial and federal, are falling over one another to try to step up and create a temporary fund. But what inevitably happens is after they create this fund and they dole out a whole bunch of money, there's a period of austerity that follows, and that's currently where we are right now. So it's true that from time to time a new program will pop up, but these short-term funds are limited in scope, and most projects won't be successful. Even those that are successful are often scaled back or redesigned after a couple of applications in hopes that the project will be successful the next time around. Or in other cases, a municipality will apply for funding for a lower priority project in hopes that the project's smaller price tag will increase its chance for success. So I can honestly say that the system isn't working. It's true that many municipalities across the room have had projects approved during the recent wave of infrastructure programs. And in fact, Northwestern Ontario as a whole did extremely well, with all three provincial and federal ridings being at the top of the list for funding dollars. And just so you can't say that I didn't say anything partisan during my speech, I'm going to say that if you look at the other two ridings, the ones that are represented by my friends John Rafferty and Bruce Heyer of the NDP, there really is no truth to the rumor that you have to have a member on the government side to get some money. So, as I was saying, while we're all happy that we've had some infrastructure projects funded, the system itself is working really, really poorly. Not only that, but it's fiscally irresponsible because the projects and the costs rise exponentially when there's a sudden boom in infrastructure investment. I know all of you know this because you've seen your projects downsized, and such as the new school in Dryden, because the bids came in well over budget. Or projects aren't started because nobody could be found to do the work at a reasonable rate. We're talking about cost overruns well in excess of 10 to 20%, and when we're talking about this inflation, we're talking about millions of dollars that are being wasted when the market is flooded with projects. It's not that the estimates are wrong, it's that the contractors say to themselves, do I want to do a $5 million project in Community A? Do I want to do a $15 million school in Community B? Or would I rather do a $30 million sewer plant in Community C? There's plenty of people around the room who are in business, and I don't need to tell you what the answer to that is. And I'd really like to hear the numbers on how many hundreds of millions of dollars were wasted by provincial and federal governments who claim to be great stewards of the public purse. The point is, it's always been my position and the position of my party that we need a permanent infrastructure fund. I know that it's not going to happen today, but it does need to happen. Doing so would allow municipalities to plan and save, knowing that there's going to be money down the road. It would keep costs on budget, and more than likely it would help sustain a permanent construction industry, rather than seeing companies go on a hiring spree, only to later lay people off when the money's dried up. So the final thing I'd like to talk to you about is the uploading of costs to the provincial government. I understand and appreciate that municipalities are getting a pretty poor deal. In Ontario, municipalities are forced to pay for social programs that are really a provincial responsibility. Programs like social housing, land ambulance, and Ontario Works should not be coming out of your pockets, yet they are. While the Ontario government has promised to upload these programs back onto their books, they have fallen short of what many of us have expected. And that's one thing that we really need to work on. It's not going to happen today because of the deficit in the economy, but I want to let you know that I am aware of the problem and that I will be working on it. It is a priority. One of the things that I'm suggesting needs to happen now with the Northern Healthcare audit that I've called for is whether we can redirect the money that's collected by hospitals for the use of land ambulance. This is money that should at the very least be directed towards the cost of land ambulance to help defray them and to alleviate some of the burden on municipalities. So on that note, I think I'm going to wrap things up. I've reiterated a lot of the things that you already know, but I want you to know that I'm aware of the issues and that I'm going to be fighting for these issues in Queen's Park. We have some opportunities and we have some challenges, but I'm confident that if we work together, that we can accomplish these things. So I thank you for your time.